Welcome back, Rage Nation. Got myself Pete here.
That's not really exciting.
You got Senior Dixon.
I don't think that's appropriate.
And we got Monsieur Leopard.
Explorers deserved it. No.
Absolutely.
I was disgusted. I cannot believe they've done this.
Why is wacky? Why is that good? It's just nonsense.
I disagree on that. That's not possible.
We're getting the band back together. We're on a mission. Yeah.
Now we've got a whole new list of things to complain about.
Welcome back, Rage Nation. We are at it again. Got myself Pete celebrating on the 4th of July. I brought a couple friends with me. We got Dixon, of course, with us from the land of Puerto Rico. And then we got a Michigander with us, too. We brought James on from the Breach Burnt. James, how you doing? Dixon, how you doing?
How you doing?
Hey.
What up?
Dixon, did you get a crap ton of rain with that hurricane south of y'all?
Oh my, yes, and the gales, dude. The gales were so dumb. Because, like, the thing is, we were
praying for you, man, because that looked rough.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Thank you. I really appreciate it. We were praying, too. It was scary. But, like, it didn't go up, so we're like, fine, that's fine. Because, like, there was always, like, a minute, 1%
yeah, that it
chance.
kicked north a little bit.
Yeah, and we were like, please don't do this. Please.
Please, no.
Not this time. Because, like, we've had it happen before. Like, twice in the last, like, 20 years. So I was like, we were all, like, ready. But yeah, no, the gales, even though it was like 50 miles off the island, the gales were like obscene. It was still whipping this area.
I know that, James, you got to be happy living up in Michigan. You don't have to deal with hurricanes. I am happy to be outside of South Carolina where I don't have to worry about hurricanes. I mean, I have to worry about tornadoes, right? Tornadoes, but
yeah,
hurricanes are gone, which is good.
Oh, yeah. Even in Virginia, I had to deal with hurricanes and tornadoes. That was like the dumbest thing.
Oh, yeah. So what we're doing today is we're actually going to be talking about the Savage. So we got Euripides, put a poll basically to the patrons and said, hey, who do you guys want to talk about? And there were 4 masters. Euripides got a bunch of votes. Colette was on there and she got no votes. So everybody hates Colette apparently, which is fine. But yeah, we're excited to talk about Savage because I think they got a lot of nifty stuff that helps them be more well-rounded in this gaining grounds. And I think the pools for this GG also help them out, which is very, very interesting. I think it's a never-born master that I don't think you should be afraid to reach for anymore. Before, he seemed kind of like a meme. Like, it's like, I'm playing Savage. But now I think you can really body some people with this crew. But before we get into that, make sure that you guys are checking us out. You can do that on our Discord channel, which is always popping off. Got lots of chat and things going on in there. You can also check us out on YouTube. Exciting news I got for the YouTube channel is I don't know how I came about it. I actually came across the Schemes and Stones on YouTube because I just like some of their old content. And I noticed that it's been like 2 years since they've done their Buying on a Budget series. If you guys remember that, basically Kyle would go through it and say, okay, here's a good starting point. It'll cost you this much. Here's some boxes you should get next. So I was just sitting there. I'm like, man, there's been a ton of boxes since that has been released. So basically I decided to take it upon myself to get some spreadsheets out, break down some costs, and break down, at least my opinion, on what would be a lot of good models to purchase for the keywords. So I'm going to start. Don't hate me, guys. I'm actually starting with Arcanist, but it'll be the first one that we do. So I'm starting to work on that, and I imagine take me about 2 weeks to knock that out because I'm pretty excited about it. So be on the lookout for that. It'll be a really cool series. I think a lot of people will enjoy. I don't know if you guys seen that series that Schemes and Stones did.
A very long time ago, but yeah.
And they also did one that I think we might do eventually. That I think one of their most interesting episodes they did was actually, I don't know if you guys recall, they did tax episodes, basically which models are worth, taking out a keyword. So I think that's something we also, and I got the blessing of the Schemes and Stones guys. So don't lynch me or something for stealing content. It's like, I asked them, I said, hey, are you guys coming back? And they're like, not anytime soon. So I'm doing it. And yeah. And then if you want to support us directly, you can do that at patreon.com/ragequitwire. You can support us for a little bit of money, and we appreciate it. That way we can keep all this cool software and stuff we use to run the podcast. And yeah, finally, if you buy stuff from Weird, don't forget to use our affiliation link at Give Us Your Money. Please, thank you, weird.com/ragequitwire. And a little bit goes to the podcast so Pete can feed his addiction, I guess. But there it is.
Tracking.
So looking at Savage, I think a lot of people just love Savage because it just looks cool, right? You got these like ice giants and they're building these ice pillars up. They're throwing them around the board. They're putting people into ice.
Yep.
So James, I'm curious, why do you like Savage so much?
1 second. You also have to like say their other names, like Battle Fatties and the big
Battle
boys.
Fatties, the Teletubbies.
There you go. See, now you're getting it.
So James, why do you love the Teletubbies?
Wait, me?
No, James first. Guest first, Dixon. Be polite.
I'm sorry, bro.
So, especially these days, it feels like crews that don't have insane amounts of card draw can struggle to keep up. Euripides doesn't have card draw, but he has
the
wild card manipulation, where you're
I call
doubling up on the
shenanigans
value.
and lies to that he doesn't draw cards. I mean, you know that the totem has Surge.
But
okay, 1 card.
2 cards.
That's true.
2 cards.
It's very true. But nothing feels better than cheating severe for damage and then old ways.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into some stories with the old ways because when it cooks, man. Dixon, I know you have played around with Euripides. What are your kind of thoughts and what you like about the crew in general?
Well, I mean, in tournaments, the only time that I ever played Euripides is when like people, I had a way for my opponent to basically, if you don't have an answer, I just win on the strategy. So because of the absurd amount of ice that he can put down, but the title changed that. So yeah, it's a mix between the runes and the card manipulation that James is talking about. It's shockingly better than like the stats say.
And I love this keyword, one, because when I think it was probably about 3 years ago, my son actually I gave him these models to paint up. So he actually painted those models up. So I have like, this cool, like, oh, my son painted this. So, it gives me the good vibes there, but they're just hulking cool models. Like they're which can be a little deceptive because you see these huge gigants and you're just kind of like, oh man, these things are going to come and punch me in the face. But then you realize that if you do that straight up strategy, you're probably going to lose some battle fatties.
Yeah. No, they're very like shockingly.
They're finesse.
Yeah, they're not. That's probably the best way to put it out. You cannot just take hits in the face with these models. They have to do trickery.
Yeah, they will absolutely get slaughtered if you set them up. Like they can do like alpha type stuff, but you better have a way to reposition and get out of there because if that crew jumps on you, that model's probably dead.
Both Tom and Harlequin in the chat. Tom is like, would Teletubby models be acceptable proxies? And Harlequin is like, punching things? No, we throw boulders. There's no walls for us.
Can we get a nightmare box of just the Teletubbies? That would be cool.
I don't think that licensing agreements would happen.
Is Weird ever worried about licensing?
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know. I mean, they did the Young Frankenstein stuff. I don't know if they paid any licensing for that.
Frankenstein is in the public domain. That's the reason why they don't have to.
Yeah, maybe the lawyers can kind of get around it that way. That's probably fair. Shelley, her version of Frankenstein has been out for a long time, so you're probably right. Okay, so yeah, let's get into talking about Yuri 1 first. So this is the original that came out, which I will say this version of Euripides is still playable, which I like because the title did not replace the original as far as I'm concerned. There's still a lot of situations where I played this version instead. So first off, before we get into him specifically, let us talk about the old ways. I've become a pipe smoking guy myself, tobacco pipe smoking, don't have dirty minds now. And looking at the old ways, it's a great mechanic. It's not busted, but there's times where it does feel busted.
If you can like the weirdest thing is like if you can hand out healing and or shielding, it becomes pretty busted in certain situations.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I don't know what James feels like, but sometimes cheating a 13 twice feels dirty.
I mean, it's definitely very strong. I think the trap
Yeah.
is to use it for every duel when you start out, and you have to learn to pick and choose. But it's definitely very strong, and I think the best part about it is the pressure that it puts on the opponent. Anytime there's a severe on top, they have to really think about whether it's worth trying to hit you or not. Because they're probably going to have to cheat first.
Yeah, I think using the old ways defensively is usually a trap. The only time I use the old ways defensively is if I have like a 13 in hand and I'm like, man, I really don't want this to hit, or I want to make them waste a good card, right? They go, okay, I'm going to swing on you. And then you go, okay, I'm going to cheat this 13. If they don't cheat to beat that and they swing on you again, it's like, okay, well, now I'm in old ways to use that 13 again because you don't have it.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, it happens, at least in my games, it happens often that, like, do you have a 13 to hit me? No. Okay, I'm going to take 1 damage and just flip it again. And your opponent is just like, well, I mean, I guess I'm done. Like, there's nothing I can do about
it. That felt good. The other one that I love when I'm playing Euripides is I love it when one of your Savage models is just punching something in the face, and you flip the red Joker for damage, and you take the red Joker, and now it's on top of your pile. Well, I got another swing, so you know what's coming. Old ways, red Joker punch in the face. You can't cheat.
It's degenerate when it happens. It doesn't come up a lot, but
I'll trade 1 damage for any suit that I want, and you can't cheat. Yes, please.
Yeah, and when you do that with Euripides, it feels so good, especially this version we're going to talk about here in a second. But the other main mechanic that you see isn't actually on Euripides 1. It's actually on most of his other crew. Is the, what do you call it? Sorry, I'm trying to look for it. Frozen Vigor. There it is. So when you end next to your activation, if your model has this ability, Frozen Vigor, you end next to Ice Pillar. I think it's within 2. You end up getting a shield and you heal 1. So a lot of the stuff in the crew has that. So there is some mechanic there to help yourself heal some of it off. But like James, you said, if you do it all the time, that doesn't matter. You're probably going to die anyways. All right.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
James, what do you like about Euripides 1? So this is kind of a cool version, but what sticks out on the card to you, and what are you trying to do with this version of Yuri?
So there's a lot on the card. Having intuition on a master is just a beautiful thing. It makes all of my Reser friends
Like, that's
very
our
jealous.
thing. You shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. Entomb and Ice can also be pretty clutch because it can shut down some shenanigans that happen when models die. And getting free Ice Pillars is always nice. But I think the real draw to him is the Runished Ice. Being able to drop shockwaves that also drop giant markers on the board really clogs up the board, and shockwaves get around a ton of defensive tech that the rest of the keyword
Runished
struggles
Edge Ice, by the way,
so.
that is what I was talking about when I said I only played them in tournaments when I knew my opponent couldn't deal with that. That is just straight, like, abusable.
Yeah.
Yeah, not only that, you also just get to do move duels where it's like, okay, yeah, cool. Have like, half your crew take, move 14 duel or take 2 damage. And move 14 is a tough duel to consistently pass, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you've played against Sandeep 2, that's exactly the number you need to pass against him, and it is awful. And not to mention, there are a couple of models that put out staggered, so that makes that even worse.
So, and to be more like clear, also, the pulse is 2 inches in both. I believe in Sandeep as well. That's the key part, because you're putting down a terrain marker that gets destroyed if you use Smash, because they have destructible, right? So you put them an inch and a little bit away from the enemy model.
Yeah, that way they have to move and destroy it, essentially.
That is literally the reason why it's so aggravating to use this action over and over again. And that's only one model. So it's one model that's basically taking away 2 or 3 activations from the enemy if they don't have a way to mass remove markers.
Yeah, and there's 2 things on the card that really make me think about bringing Yuri 1. So the first thing is this huge fist, right? He just has this 3-4-6 just beat stick of a attack. And that seems fine on a master, but I think when you look at the sweeping strike trigger, that's where I'm like, do I think I can abuse sweeping strike this game? And if the answer is yes, I tend to lean more towards Yuri. And the other thing is definitely off of his bonus, Reflected Visage, with the Shattering Surprise trigger. The fact that you can just teleport 8+ inches away and go scheme or go punch something, and that's a bonus action. I'm like, yeah, I'm all about this. Let's go drop a scheme and then let's smash somebody in the face. Deathbeds is like my friend with Yuri 1.
Yeah, people absolutely. And people will not see it coming necessarily the first time because he is move 5. But that 8-inch place is just something like 10 inches.
It's 8 from the marker, and then the marker is about an inch, and then his base is about 2 inches. So it's actually closer to like an 11, and then he has a 1-inch reach, so that's like a 12-inch threat.
Yeah, it's
and he can charge off the end of that.
Yeah, it's slightly over 11, and you control almost fully where it goes because you are dropping the marker yourself during your activation if you want to.
Exactly. That's the big thing, right? I think anytime you have a master that has a trick like that, the masters are more powerful if they can control it all in their activation, right? Because then you can be like, you don't have to wait for the setup. You can just set up yourself, which is big when you're trying to get the payoff.
Yeah.
And man, if you hit that severe 6 and you splash like 4 damage onto like 2 or 3 models, man, that is money.
I mean, usually you only hit 1, but like that's still 10 damage across 2 models.
Yeah, there's certain crews where you're more, and that's kind of what I'm saying when I consider playing Yuri 1. There are some crews that bunch up like real bad. I'm thinking of like if you play against like Hamlin and there's going to be a bunch of rats everywhere. It's like, yeah, let's try to sweeping strike the crap into these rats.
Oh, that is a double whammy because like when the rats die, they don't drop an ice pillar though. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's true because they don't drop a corpse because they're like puny.
Yeah, exactly. They don't drop any markers. So annoying.
You drop an ice pillar.
No, that's what I'm saying. It doesn't because it drops no markers. And they actually put it in the FAQ. They said a model with puny doesn't drop any markers.
Oh, well, it's good they clarified that.
Yeah.
The last thing I want to ask you guys about, because I didn't get a lot of use out of Glacial Shove, but I'm curious what you guys have done with that, because I can see possible lines of play. I just never got it to work. So I don't know if you guys have some cute instances you've used that.
So, yes, I have tried it many, many times to try and snipe a model. I'll cheat a 13. 9 out of 10 times my opponent will cheat to dodge it. But I have been able to snipe a few models with it. And now that Cultgeists exist, I use it more for positioning. But if you do have a high card and you can manage to get staggered on somebody, you can basically make an unwinnable duel and just do almost guaranteed 2 damage 10 inches away.
What about you, Dixon?
Never successfully used it. I believe the only 2 things I ever do with this master is Rune Edge Ice and Reflective Visage. If I have to punch something, I usually am losing anyway, but I have done it because Sweeping Strike. Like, it's just trying to, flip and try to get that tome just to hit multiple models.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I thought about with it is if I wanted to move an ice pillar 10 inches away so my Gigant could, like, push somebody into that 10 inches away, I was like, well, why wouldn't I just do Rune Etched Ice? So I was kind of like, that doesn't seem like it.
Yeah.
I think what I've heard people more using it for is if Thune turns somebody into a popsicle, you can then throw the popsicle 10 inches back and it's just done the rest of the game. So I've never done it, but
yeah,
it's good if you can do it. That's like the dreamland of like throwing somebody that's put into ice and just tossing them 10 inches away from anything relevant. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I like this version a lot. It's mobile and it has a great attack, and Rune Etched Dice is really good, and Shattering Surprise is really good. What about this weird defensive ability that and willpower ability that I always forget about with the Future Sight? Do you guys ever remember that? Because I always forget.
I think I've had it triggered twice.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because you have to win the
It's
duel
pretty
is the problem, and
uncommon.
you're only defense like 5.
Exactly. What was that, James?
If someone's really gunning for Yuri, especially when Assassinate was in the pool, if you cheat a red Joker, then you basically guarantee strip a card out of their hand, and then if they punch you again, they almost guaranteed lose the duel. And
Yeah,
you can
that's
take
if the red
card.
Joker hits, though, because most stuff coming into you trying to kill Yuri's probably stat 6 or higher. So even if you cheat, and that's kind of why I felt like it was rare even when I remembered it, because that puts you at a 19. If they're stat 6 or more, they can hit you with a 13, even though you cheated the Joker in. So, but yeah, definitely if you see, that's why kids always ask what the stat is, because if it's like, oh, I'm stat 5, it's like, okay, red Joker actually might work for that ability.
Yeah, it's very uncommon. I usually am not gunning for it, but I'll take
I
it
always
if
just
I can
forget
get
about it. To me, it's almost like a dead ability, honestly. And even if you get it, it's like, okay, I see your control hand. Okay, I guessed wrong on the thing. It's just, I don't know. It's cute, and I think it fits into like his fluff a little bit. But yeah, I always forget about it. So I kind of like just write it off. I'm like, I'm never going to remember that. I know some people get better actual use out of it, though.
The big issue is literally having to win the duel. That's the number one reason why that you could probably erase that and give him Frozen Vigor, and it would be better.
I 100% would prefer Frozen Vigor on Yuri 1. Like that, I want that 100%. Because I feel like since you don't have Frozen Vigor, you're almost forced to bring a healer with Yuri 1 just so he doesn't auto die.
Yeah, he ends up using old ways to hit
Yeah.
Rune Etched Dice triggers a lot, and he will almost always kill himself.
Let's go you switch. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the title. I will say I do like Yuri 1, but the title to me is very good. Especially I think as Malifaux has progressed in their 3rd edition, there is so many situations where this version is better just because of the sheer amount of markers we see in the game now. And Absolute Zero can just crush the hopes and dreams of those crews, because you basically just remove those and then, oh, by the way, I'm going to always get that tome trigger to create a crap ton of ice pillars. I have 12 ice pillars that I have ordered from Top Doug Design, because he has a bunch of cool ones that he can burn off. And every time I play Yuri 2 against Old One Eye against a terrain, like any kind of marker crew, I just run out of them. It's just, there's so many ice pillars on the board. It's awesome.
All right. So
I
feel that, well, at least to me, I'm just going to say to me, this is the same problem that Pandora has, where I think the title is the generalist version, which is just good generally.
Yeah.
And then the first one is like, oh, in this specific instance, this is more broken. I'm just going to use the original.
Yeah, I'm curious. So I agree with you, Dixon and James. I'm curious what you think, because I would say 8 out of 10 games, I'm going to play the title over the original. I don't know how you feel about that, James, but that's where I land, I think.
He's just so good. I struggle to find times where I want Yuri 1. Neverborn has next to 0 marker removal for one thing. For another, when you're removing those, you're pulsing a 4-inch heal on hard to kill models. It's just disgusting. And I'm sure Dixon has discussed this on most of your episodes, but Avalanche
it's a heck of a drug, kids.
Oh my lord! And the thing is, like, you can use it on anything that's like super threatening. I've used Euripides with a single mature, and it is so fun. It's just like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna push my.
Can I tell you
12
guys
inches.
my best avalanche moment with Yuri 2? So I was playing against Anya, and Trevor had In Your Face. And so Corvus Rook was his most expensive model. So here goes Corvus, end of game. He's just, sprinting off to the deployment zone. And I was like, okay, I got to get back there and get Corvus out of there. But I was kind of in the middle of the board, so it was a little tough. So what I ended up doing, and we'll talk about this more when we get to the Gigants, is the Gigants have a trigger to basically teleport a model, I think with a ram maybe, to an ice pillar anywhere on the board, as long as that shove pushes them into an ice pillar, essentially. So I pushed Euripides into an ice pillar to teleport him next to Corvus. And then I used Avalanche to push Corvus out of the deployment zone, like 12 inches or something. It's like, surprise, mother effer.
That's so rough.
Yeah.
That is so rough.
And there is a built-in trigger on that, though, where you can discard rune tokens to heal the model that you're pushing. So not only is it movement for your crew, but you can also save a model that way.
Yeah. Shockingly, you get runes so much that this might as well just say heal 3.
Dude, when you play this title, first off, you realize how good rune tokens are and how good, hepatomacy is, whatever it is.
Hepatomancy, yes.
Yeah, can one of you guys explain that? Because I love it. Like, it's just beautiful.
Go for it, James.
I mean, the hard part is not wasting tokens because you get so fucking many. Basically, anytime any of your Savage models perform any duel, not even a resisted duel, you can spend a rune to look at the top 2 cards of either person's deck and get rid of any non-jokers. So anytime it is once per activation, that's really the only limitation on it. But you're also using Old Ways, which gives you the rune tokens back, because it's anytime you take damage. So anytime you get attacked, or anytime you Old Ways, you're getting these runes, and you're just... Yeah, sure. It's
a 10-inch aura. This thing is massive.
Yep. Oh, yeah. It is absurd.
When I figured out that I could look at my fate deck or my opponent's even on turn 1, because you can just be like, cool, I'm going to do Avalanche. Want to know what? I'm going to look at your fate deck. Holy crap, that's a 13. Let's throw that in the discard pile.
Dude, oh my God, it's so good. I don't know, James, I don't know about you, but like, this is the main reason why he's a generalist beater.
It's so good that if all Euripides does is Avalanche all game, you can win the game, because he doesn't need actions on his card.
Not to like diminish the value of Etheric Gaze, but you're right. I mean, if all he does is Avalanche, he usually gets more value, which is weird, because like, Etheric Gaze is great, and you will get some value out of it in many games, if not all games, but it's usually like 1 or 2 shots, and then you get a lot of value, and then you go back to like repositioning people for winning.
Yeah, and I've also like his melee. It's a 2-inch reach melee that does 2, 4, 5. But if I do feel like I want to lean more towards the Bloody Fist, I feel like you almost want to bring something like what I think Maurice can put out focus on friendly models. So maybe you try to get more focus on Euripides to pay off there. But yeah. Also, like you guys said, Aetheric Gaze is super sweet as well, because if you you blast onto, what is it? Target suffers a blast for each rune. Oh, that's right. You can like discard a rune token to get a blast, right, or something like that.
Yeah, for every rune token you discard. So again, you can do
it could be triple blast.
Well, it says 2 times. No, it's double blast specifically.
Okay.
But it is so damn good, because it's like, take 5 damage on this little duder that just dies, like your totem or whatever, and then I'm just going to do 3 damage to things that you actually care about.
Well, I actually think that's more powerful to be like, I'm going to do like 5 damage to this easy to hit model, but then I'm going to splash 3 damage onto, I don't know, like the dispatcher, because he's annoying as heck to deal with.
Yeah, that's absolutely what I meant. It's like
Yeah,
it's
get
just
those
dumb.
cute backline models, right?
Also, and this is valuable to add,
Mhm.
it ignores cover. So you're just going against basically any negatives from abilities and concealment, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. And that's what I'm saying. He's super flexible because he's a support master for his crew. He moves them around and he heals stuff. He gets rid of problematic markers. He has a gun that's pretty decent, 10-inch range, and he also has a decent attack that can spike and take things off the board as well. And he's manipulating your deck and your opponent's deck. So he's just more flexible in my mind, whereas the first version is just like, I'm going to be mobile, fast, and punch where I need to, and create ice pillars.
He also almost never dies because he actually has frozen vigor and he can
Oh,
still
Yeah,
that's
pour
so
and he's
funny.
blood
and he's
on
defense
melee.
6, right, and willpower
So
6. Yeah, this version of Yuri, he went through a hard breakup and he went to the gym and got rid of his dad bod, and he's all hulking and flexing and ready to rip people's guts out.
He got them gains.
He's reading the tea leaves with the entrails he's holding up.
Oh, that's so funny. But yeah, no, like very simply put, he just has very good mobility for his crew now. So even if you add in like any versatile or Garyon or Thune, your opponent has to assume that that all of your pieces have like an extra 5 to 10 inches of movement that goes through walls.
All right, so let's look at not that, yep, that. So let's look at the primordial magic here, his totem. This thing, like, it doesn't look impressive, right? Because it's like, oh, it's got only 3 hit boxes. This thing's pretty, I wouldn't say like prime important, but this thing is important to the crew. Like, if you have a chance to kill this model, it's definitely worth doing it.
it's a very good model. Giving Incorp used to be the best way to give mobility to your crew. It also gives them a little bit more survivability. And I don't think we mentioned this, but because Old Ways flips the top card of your discard instead of your draw, you can just guarantee that you get Incorp on a model every single turn. You're never going to blackjack this action.
Yeah, I actually think that's something we missed talking about the old ways. If you have like a critical flip, it could be this, it could be Avalanche, where it's just like, I need this to go off. And if you have something on top of your discard pile that is like, that's a 6, that'll make this go off. It's like, I'm not going to risk the Black Joker. Let me Old Ways take a point and I'm good.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and so he gives out Incorporeal to another Savage model with form given to winner. So basically, you can just, hey, guess what? Euripides can move through a wall, or Thune can move through walls, or yeah, it's just, you can really get some cool plays there. It does have the surge trigger to draw cards, which is not ever a bad thing. It is also probably, I think, the most important thing is it is significant, so it can, get you some scheme points and strat points, but it also has Arcane Reservoir, so it lets Euripides have a 7 card hand, which is pretty sweet. Dixon, do you love this snaky boy?
As a snaky boy stabs his own friends to draw cards, and yes, I love this thing following a cult, guys. I know it's dumb, but like I love it.
Well, because then the cult guys is only taking what, 1, maybe 0 damage if it has shielded.
Yeah, that's specifically why he charge this random tome, or if I flip a tome, then I just attack it twice.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, and it's not even the first or second activation. Like you do other models activations that you have to flip cards to do. Like a crook skin. Let's just take something very simple. Crook skin walks, does his ability. Discarded a card. You are down a card. Now you activate this thing. You can draw it again. Just little things like that.
Yeah, in sheer cold, you target an ice pillar, and pinging 1 damage is fine. But I think the bigger thing for sheer cold, the corner case, is with cleanse, you can either remove scheme, corpses, or scraps. So just randomly, you might ruin your opponent's plans with that, because if you're playing against like Mei Feng, or if you're playing against Rezzers, or if you just want to remove scheme markers to try and maybe avoid like I don't know, maybe they take in snare or something, and you can just ping that to get those taken off the board. That's kind of just a neat little piece of tech you kind of discover as you play the crew more. So I've gotten decent use out of that because it's not a resist duel. You just need a 7 of tomes and you can just take them off.
Yeah, most models with these kinds of abilities put out shockwaves, but his is just unresisted damage, and you can old ways to guarantee it happens 2 times.
Yeah, and I will say though, if you are playing against Euripides, if you can catch this primordial magic in the open, or if you can get a shot to take it off the board, like I said, it's definitely worth taking off because it's just one of those totems that helps the crew out a lot, and it can score points, and anything that can score points is worth taking off the board. Get that activation control too.
I play very safe with this guy because he has 3 HP.
So the model you're going to see the most with either version of Euripides, and you might not see him every game in GG4 because he's not a schemer, but he will hold down an area, and that is Thune. This is one of my favorite models in the game. He's kind of tough as nails. He's very difficult to deal with. And he causes so many problems for your opponent. I think the thing that there's 2 things I think people are most afraid of with Thune. And the first is Frozen Trophy. Everybody that plays against Savage and sees Thune, they start freaking out about the Frozen Trophy because they don't want their stuff to get kidnapped, which is what will happen if you turn a model into an ice pillar, because that buries them and they don't come out until it's removed. And then I also think just the fact that Drain Magic is also on his Chain Wrapped Fists. Like, Drain Magic on a stone user that can reuse High Crows also because of the old ways. There's times where also I give Thune fast just because of different models you can bring with this crew. So there's been times where I've hit a model 3 times for Drain Magic and just strip their hand. And not only that, you're cycling your hand, which is good.
The couple of things that like to mention, Harley actually reminded me. I do take this model out of keyword in 2 of my other masters, in Pandora and Faye, specifically with Titania 1. This guy, you cannot go after him by himself. Like, if you send one single model after Thune, that model is not coming back unless you kill Thune with like 1 round of activations.
Yeah, that definitely is a mistake. You need a battle buddy when you go against Thune.
Dude, I remember you went through like some kind of weird shenanigans to try to save Archie in one of our games. This is like almost like a year ago at this point, because you didn't respect Thune. And then Thune popsicled Archie, and you were like, "Oh crap!" I was like, "Yeah,
yeah." I think I had to end up like taking my rider or something, like riding Molly over, and then she had to, do Lost Knowledge or whatever to get him out of there. Like, yeah, I had to jump through about like 8 different hoops to do it.
Yeah, it's very. This is almost game winning because like, if you do it and your opponent like either doesn't have the tools to actually move and remove it at range or whatever, that model is basically dead. Like, unless some shenanigans happens, that model is basically dead.
Yeah, like even it's even worth doing it with Thune with like a solo scheme runner. Like if somebody has, a like a necro punk or something that's just off trying to like picking daisies and like running schemes, Thune can just go over real quick, be like, "Now you're an ice pillar. Have a nice day," and walk off.
Yep.
Good times.
James, do you have any stories like that? I gotta hear somebody like that, but outside.
Somebody must have got upset over that, James.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite time was taking the lucky emissary who was running through my backfield and getting a bunch of scheme points, and I turned him into an ice pillar, and then he stayed buried for 3 turns.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
It's like, yeah, you were sitting back here being an a-hole. Well, look at you now. Okay.
I think
So,
I
go
think
ahead, James.
even when Thune doesn't feel like he does a lot, ask your opponent at the end of the game how they felt about it. Because if
Yeah.
they didn't get affected by him, they played way around him, and that's something also.
Thune, and that's a great point because there are some times where you'll play a model like Thune and you'd be like, man, Thune didn't really do anything. He just dropped a couple schemes and, he stood on a marker and, he killed like a summon model. But you talk to your opponent after the game and they're like, dude, I was terrified. Like I wanted to do this and I couldn't do it because Thune was sitting there. And then you start to realize the pressure that just the model being on the table provided.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes if you meta pick it or whatever you want to call it, like if you basically read your opponent very well and you pick Thune out of keyword, he might just completely take over a corner of the map.
Yeah.
Like if you're playing flank and then you have Thune and your opponent has no plan, but he knows how dangerous Thune is, he'll just give you that corner. It's like, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
He can be by himself.
I did that with I played a game last night and it was flank, and my opponent did an interesting thing. I don't think it was the proper thing, but it was interesting. He sent a peacekeeper over to deal with a flank, and I'm just like, oh, I can't deal with that. Now I have to abandon this flank. So that's definitely true. Can we also just say how good Hook Chain is at like stat 7 and moving models closer to you and possibly putting out staggered? Like, it's pretty good. No, just
It's
me.
very good. If you can get it off, if you can guarantee Hook Chain goes off, then you can snipe models and bury them that wouldn't necessarily be able to. If you can't beat someone in a duel, you can use Shifting Ice, put an ice pillar behind them, stone for the mask on Arctic Pole, push them 8 inches towards you unresisted.
Oh.
It's pretty good.
For 4 masks.
Yeah, Shifting Ice I need to get better with for sure on him because there's times where you can set up things and I forget about it.
With that and Intuition, it's easy to forget.
Yep.
Shifting Ice can also just get your call guys into position. So
you have your 2 I'm going to punch you in the face.
Yeah. No, I mean, like James is saying though, like there's so many movement shenanigans stuff that you don't really have to like aim to do 6 damage with this model for him to get value.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of what we were talking about at the beginning, right? Where this crew looks like thematically you want to just go punch stuff, but there's actually so much like positional and movement stuff that's actually where you can probably leverage your most victory points is just off of that.
Yeah, I think this crew is deadly in things like Raid the Vaults, where you can just bury people and then they're not standing next to strategies anymore.
Yep.
Just long story short, Thune is a gimmick and is a very strong gimmick.
So yeah, I was just going to say, what's the next model that you guys you see the most with Euripides' crew?
Garyon.
The Garyon, you say?
Dude, Garyon, like a duo of these is damn near necessary in some fights.
Okay,
yeah.
So what do you?
If it's going to be a melee fight, you bring the Garyon.
So maybe you're seeing the Garyon less in this GG because obviously fighting isn't primarily the thing, but there definitely are pools where like you just want to fight, and the Garyon's definitely good at doing that.
Personally, I think the Garyon's great in every pool. I'm sorry, at least one of them is necessary in my opinion.
Why do you think it's necessary even in the schemy pools?
He's great defense tech against melee crews, like James was saying, and he has 2-inch reach, which is just generally good in this GG. I don't know, James, would you like to add anything?
So I'll almost always bring a Garyon. There's a ton of really, really good things about them, extended reach being one of those things. But they're also good with all 3 of the Neverborn upgrades. Ancient Pact guarantees that they don't miss damage. Eldritch Magic and Counterspell in right matchups, like against Tony Einersides, will just win you the game. And then Inhuman Reflexes makes extended reach even more disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I think
Boulder Rush, by the way, also the value is so good.
Yeah, and I was looking at it with when I was playing. I don't think I bring the Gary on every game because there's other models I just like more in the Gaining Grounds. But the one where I was like, okay, I really like this is on his Boulder Fist, getting the heave trigger. If I was playing in a game where there's a lot of hazardous terrain, I love that trigger on the Garyon because you're just throwing models into the hazardous terrain. So you're not only doing your 3, 4, 6, but you're also now just tossing models, up and down into this terrain and just causing chaos. Shoulder Rush is also just really good. I like that a lot as well.
Yeah, that is you cannot ignore Shoulder Rush. That is probably their best ability, with like their melee attack being the second closest thing.
Well, because you get a 6-inch move out of it. If you're going, if you're causing the movement duels, you're doing 2 damage. And if you have a tome, which I always do shoulder rush when I have a tome, because then you're giving yourself focus.
Yeah, Garyon are usually going to be focused 2 on turn 1. And it means that they can't be timed out in melee. They can just push out. So even if you don't put upgrades on them, they can just push out and go do a scheme, stand by a strategy.
Yeah, and that being said, I mean, this is a good example of if you put the Garyon in a bad situation, it's going to die really quick. It has hard to kill, but that's not going to save you forever.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to put this model in a bad situation because of literally the extended reach and the 2-inch melee makes it significantly hard for people to deal with this model in a fair fight.
Yeah, and I think Inhuman Reflexes gives him Scamper.
Yeah, that's
so if you start cheating against this, it's just like whoop 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 whoop.
Yeah. Inhuman Reflexes I need to try it more because I haven't tried it since like a long time ago, and I've gotten better at surviving because I gave them Ancient Pack because they died usually to like Black Jokers. But
I
like
like Inhuman Reflexes on the Garyon a lot.
Dude, it's like now that I hear James talk about it, it's like, yeah, Blade Rush, Mobile Warrior is also incredibly good in this thing because once it gets into melee, he can just charge through so many models.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, it can let you get into the back line, which is strong.
Now, I will tell y'all that I have never played a game of Euripides without bringing at least one Gigant. And sometimes I feel like bringing 2 of these dudes. They're only 6 health, but they're only 6, cost. They have hard to kill. They can randomly, for some reason, throw boulders in really good spots. But the thing I love most about is their tree trunk with actually it's on a tome. I was wrong earlier, but with the shattering shove, because you just push the target 2 inches and then you get to teleport it anywhere on the board. If you push it within 2 inches of an ice pillar, you can put it anywhere else on the board next to another ice pillar. It is pretty wild the plays you can get on this.
Yeah, there's many combos with that. I remember back in the day, people used to do it to Candy.
Yeah,
and that was horrifying. Because like, all right, activation number 1, activate Yuri.
If you're not ready for it,
original Yuri.
Yeah, if you're not ready for it, Candy being shattering shoved into like the middle of your crew turn 1. Like if you see an ice pillar anywhere near you, turn 1 or 2, and Candy's like getting ready to, she's about to be in your crew. You need to remove that ice pillar.
Well, that's what I was gonna like. I was just gonna say it real fast. It's activation number 1. Activate Yuri. Yuri drops with a 5 of tomes. He drops a ice pillar next to Candy and then next to the center of the table so he can teleport to it. Teleport to it with your bonus action. Use your remaining 2 actions to block off your opponent and put 4 ice pillars in hard to reach places. If your opponent doesn't have a way to remove all 4 ice pillars, Candy is now in the middle of the enemy crew on second activation.
Yeah.
It's rough. It is so rough.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I appreciate in Gaining Grounds 3 is cave drawings. just the fact that if they're near an ice pillar, they can't interact until the end of the turn, or even concentrate actions. Actually, I didn't even see that second part. Also, Shattering Surprise. Once again, a model that just has insane mobility because of that ram trigger, which I use a lot with the Gigants.
Yeah, the Gigants are I think very sneaky good because of how surprisingly fast they can be. They can hide behind buildings and shoot people on the other side of the building. My absolute favorite thing to do is to stand behind a building, shoot a master by discarding a crow, and then old waysing it to stun them and push them.
That's awesome.
That
has
so
won me a couple of games.
That is so gross.
Yeah, and it has 2-3-5 with blast on the moderate and severe with that thrown boulder. And yeah, just the fact that you just don't care. And that's what I'm saying. The triggers on this model are so good on all three of their actions.
I mean, he just suffers from mid defenses, but his attacks are really good if there's walls around the game.
Well, and that's the thing, though. This model is mobile enough that you can kind of try to keep yourself out of those bad situations. So, yes, you're right. That is kind of their problem. Plus, a lot of their stuff's short range, right? Like range 8's not that far, so you do have to kind of get yourself in the danger zone a little bit. But they can manage it a little bit. You can put ice pillars out with other models to try and make it inconvenient to get to your Gigants, because if you can kill a Gigant, you want to do it.
Yep.
I'm going to talk about this, and we're going to have a fun conversation about it, because apparently Dixon is not a fan of the Damned. However, I bring it a lot.
I'm not a fan of the Damned in Neverborn. How do you feel about the Damned, James?
So there was a long time where the Damned was the only new model in Savage since the keyword was released, and I brought it in every single game. I still bring it in about half the games. I think what you have to consider with the Damned is that if he gets hit 3 times with Min 3, he's dead. So you don't want to old ways on defense, because that's going to just make him die faster. And a lot of times, all you want to do is focus and sit there. I think using leap turn 1 is often a mistake. But he has a tremendous amount that he can do, especially when he has focus and pouncing strike. He can snipe models really well, and he's a very, very good mobile scheme runner. But yes, he does die to things.
So there's 2 modes that I think you want to leverage with the Damned. So the first one is, like you were saying, James, the scheming. Like, he can go be a good scheme runner, but if there's like an Archie on the table, he probably just dies. But he also has this Chronicles that's really good, where, when something heals, enemy models within 1 inch of it suffer 1 damage. So you can also use the Damned as this weird, like, backline kind of platform, just hanging out behind like your line, where when your models start healing from like the Vigor, and when you heal from other triggers like from Yuri 2, you can just start pinging the crap out of your opponent. So I've done it once or twice to some success. Rich, who wasn't able to come on today, has used it in way more successful ways like that. And it does have that playability in it. So if you want to do some like severe ping damage, it can get pretty nasty pretty quick.
I could definitely see that. I honestly forgot that was on his card.
Yeah.
There's 2 modes. But he does die. I will say, every time I play him, I'm like, I purposefully try to not have him die just to prove Dixon wrong.
I know. It's. I just don't think this piece is like. I look at the Blessing of December, and I'm just like, why? Why did we get the worst version of that?
Because he's undead. This is if the Blessed December died, it would be decayed into this version.
Man. Just man.
Yeah, so Dixon. Can I at least get you to acknowledge it's a solid model that you bring sometimes?
Oh yeah, no, I hate the model, but unfortunately it's good.
Yeah, it'll get rolled up sometimes. Like I've lost this model turn one. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh no, it's always good for me.
Yeah.
There are some times where this model accidentally dies turn one.
Yes. Yes. I mean, that's the main issue that I have with this model is this model just randomly dies.
Let's see here. I'm looking. Is there any other bring a lot models like you almost bring it all the time, James? Or are we kind of getting into the spot where it's like, okay, here's where these are really good?
There's two for me. If James doesn't have one.
The one I would say is I always bring at least one Cultgeist to the game.
Okay. So what do you like about the Cult Geist?
So Icy Winds is just really, really good. It can move your guys up turn one, but it also can push them out of engagement. And it pulses off of the Cultgeist as well as an Ice Pillar. So it's just really, really good. He also just exists as an Ice Pillar, so if you need somebody to go punch something, you can go walk a Cultgeist up to that thing, and then when the person goes in, they get a Frozen Vigor trigger off of it. It's just a really, really versatile model. It basically doesn't have a melee, but it's good.
I was going to say, this is another model, and I got to mute that because that's annoying. This is another model, though, where it has Shattering Surprise, and I've used that before to just score, like, I think in the other GG I used it to, like, score a breakthrough. I just popped over there, Shattering Surprise, dropped a scheme, and was good. So there's just a lot of situations like that where, once again, the mobility of this crew is just superb, even on this, 5 Soulstone model.
Yeah, and people will forget about it because it is kind of just a crappy utility model. So yeah, it is very good at sneaking in points like that.
Also, another instance of putting out Staggered with a move duel, so that's always good.
Yep.
And when we talk out of keyword, we're going to talk about why that's so good, but we'll get there here soon. I will say another model that I end up bringing a lot is actually the Crook skins. Out of all the games I've played a Crook skin in every single one of them, and it has never not done something to score points. It's just the Craven Imitations that can be a bonus action is just so nasty. The fact that you can just put out an Ice Pillar, it has this, Diet Coke version of Secret Passage, which is fine. And the other thing I like about it is it targets move on its melee. And there has been times where I've staggered something and then just done like 5 damage to it. And they're just great schemers.
It's a really good model on its face. It doesn't seem insane, and it's not breaking the game, but it is a devastating schemer. It has stealth, which is not something the keyword has. It can basically leap like the Damned, but I think stealth keeps it alive a lot better than the Damned does.
Yeah.
It also is hard to wound, which is nice, but it's an extremely good beater schemer, to use a term you guys have coined.
Yeah, and I think this is also a good model to set up some of your Shattering Surprise moves, because there's times where I'll just double walk a Crook skin and then I'll put an Ice Pillar out, and now either the Gigant or Euripides can now teleport to that to go do some real work.
Yeah, it's very clutch. You can just hold ways to guarantee that it happens. So
I'll still never get past how this looks like the human being off of the Community comedy series. I'm just like, oh, this is like the Greendale human beings.
It really does.
Dixon, I don't think you've had a chance to try these yet, have you?
I have online, but like the thing is, they're fine models. I don't think that they're bad. I don't think that they're quite there to be good, but they're cheap. They're six points,
which is cheap for a Savage model, right?
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is, I prefer Gigants, so it's kind of like competing for the Gigant, and that's the only reason why. Because Gigants, I like to do the aura that denies people from interacting, and then they have to
Yeah.
kill the Gigant, and I think it's funny.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's one of those models that I think like I said, you can bring. And when I do, I usually, if I don't bring two Gigants, I'll bring a Gigant and a Crookskin because, like you said, they're kind of that same point value.
Yep.
I'm curious, and Dixon, I know you've played these models on what you guys think
Yes.
about the Boltungan because I actually like
That
these
was one
quite
of
a
my
bit.
two.
Yeah, I like this quite a bit.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
they're
Dixon.
straight up good.
Yeah, that's one of my two models. That's actually one of the two models that I was going to mention. The Batungan is just like if I really need a scheme runner, I'll take him over, you know, the Gigant, and I save myself a point, and they do work before they die, and they're only 5 points.
Yeah, I mean they're fast, they're hard to kill, they have deadly pursuit. I actually
Yep.
love the. There's a couple things I love, but I love the homebound because you can remove a scheme marker and then you just create another marker that's already on the board. So it's just like, cool, I'm going to remove my opponent's scheme marker, and hey, there's another ice pillar.
Yes. Also, you do it as a bonus action, which is the important part. Like the
Yeah,
important part is that it's a bonus action, and it gets to remove it at range. I believe it's like range 2. It's
yep,
either 1 or 2.
it's two.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but yeah, that the Botungan.
good.
I'm listening. Oh, I was just gonna mention the Botungan is just way survivable for his point cost, and it usually takes a beat or 2 turns to kill it.
Yeah, have you used this a bunch, James?
Since they got errata, I use them constantly. They're one of the only models in the keyword that ignores severe terrain, which can be really big. They can move 16 inches in a turn if they need to. Um, they're just really, really good. They're hard to kill.
Yeah,
Um,
and I
I've
think
even, in a recent game against Sonya, I've used Toss in the Mud to just take burning off a model.
nice. Yeah, I was going to say, I think in this Gaining Grounds, because I don't know about you guys, but playing in a lot of Gaining Grounds games, you see a lot of people setting up for like Power Ritual and they're setting up for Espionage and they're putting down scheme markers early to score like endpoints. This model is really good
Yeah.
about just screaming down the board and removing that crap.
Yes. Also, you can't ignore it because like he'll be like 8 inches away from something that you love, and they'll like be like, "Okay, I'm just gonna wait. I'm 5 points. I don't care. I really don't care."
I have done that too, Dix, and it's funny you say it. Like, there's like something that's kind of scary, and I'm like, I'm just gonna drop a scheme and sit right here. And they're like, "That's it." I was like, "Yeah, I'm not getting any closer. You can come over here if you want, and then I'm gonna zip past
Yeah.
you."
Yeah. It's like end of turn, I can move 4 inches. Because the thing is that that's the number one defense that they have. They have a lot of other like hard to kill, all that stuff. It's really good. But the fact that they can stay a distance away and they are very good at just being annoying, yeah, that's it. That's like the biggest value in my
Dude,
opinion.
that is one of my favorite things to do with a scheme runner. I did it last night when I was playing Trevor. I had a Wandering River Monk, and there was like I was playing against Cooper too, so there was this like very narrow gap where it's like I could run right through that gap, and if I survived, I get in the deployment zone and score like 2 points that game. So it was like he's running the gambit. It almost felt like in the Two Towers, of the Lord of the Rings, where that Uruk-hai, berserker is just running with the fire, ready to blow up the wall. That's how I felt, and I barely got out of there with the Wandering River Monk's life and got into the corner of the deployment zone, and I won the day. So that's one of my favorite things to do with scheme runners. Just like there's a very narrow alley. Let's see if we can get through it without dying.
Oh man.
All right, so we love Boltungan. I actually started bringing Boltungan more as I played the keyword. Dixon, you said you had a second model that you brought a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I out of keyword. Um, I always take the Kurgan, so I mean that's a
Oh,
given.
jeez.
But
Get out
but
of here.
but I like to say
This guy.
special recommendation also is girly oh my god, Basilissa special recommendation
Okay, why? That's
because
interesting. Why do you think that?
If you bring Basilissa by herself, she gives +4 movement to a bunch of models just normally. She can keep herself alive, and if anybody decides to go after her, she'll stagger them if they don't kill her. So
Okay.
I have had many instances where she just survives, and because something is staggered, they're basically done. They're dead. So yeah, Basilissa, versatile. She can heal herself. It's just like a great solo model that you can just like run separate of the crew. And if you really want to add, you can add a Wicked Doll and just make it even worse for your opponent. All for the nice price of like 11 points.
Yeah, I thought you were going to go a different direction with that because I
Why?
think if you wanted to be that guy, I think bringing the
Mhm.
mysterious emissary is pretty gross and savage. That's who I thought you
I
were going
mean,
to say.
it's not out of the no, it's not out of the question, but that is expensive. And I do it, but I do it more because I know the matchup. It's like one of those things. Like I pick Thune out of keyword when I know the matchup can't handle it.
Okay. So you're
Yeah,
more
it's
like
just one of those.
this is good with savage. I don't think my opponent can deal with it, so I'm going to bring it.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, my opponent doesn't have an easy way with like severe terrain. I'm gonna bring the emissary. Like that's it. That's basically the logic that I use.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I like the way that you think about that when you're building your list is to be like, "Oh, I'm playing against I don't know, let's call it mercenary. Mercenary doesn't have a lot of ways to deal with hungry lands. Let's go ahead and put this in front of them."
So I think especially when you're playing Old One Eye, you want to play heavy in keyword because those are the models that you can protect with the runes.
Yeah.
However, the last probably 5 games of Old One Eye I've played, I have brought the Syzygy sisters, and they have done a lot of work for me.
That's a weird model.
It's a very weird model, and it's not an easy model to play. There's a lot of avenues that you can go down, but this crew does not have a lot of ways to drop ranged key markers. Syzygy sisters can do that on a shockwave, so that's very good. They
Okay.
have a lure that can pull Euripides and give him a focus. That can be done as a bonus action,
Yeah.
so that's very good. And then the gun can ignore armor, and they also have a really good melee. So depending on your matchup, you basically pick the one you want, and you're going to be good into that.
Yeah, it
You
seems
can
like she
also
has a
heal
lot of
it with.
answers to things.
I've scored deathbeds with this model every game I brought it in.
What's the so she puts down the ski marker, but what's the marker? Are you just choosing the strat or are you choosing ice pillars?
I pick ice pillars.
I choose frozen death. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Another expensive model.
Getting focus on your master is usually good.
Yeah.
So that's one of the main reasons.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any out of keyword you like, Dixon.
No, those were the two. And Candy that I mentioned earlier, but Candy is like a finesse type of combo. Wombo combo, you throw it across the table, and if your opponent really didn't have a way to deal with her, then that's game over right there.
Well, I also think you can use Candy in another way too, right? You can use her as a healer and giving out fast to models. And that's
Right.
always good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I actually like her more for that than just the alpha, because I think a lot of people know how to deal with her now. So I think a lot of times that's not really going to catch anybody off guard. So we kind of been tiptoeing around this then. Obviously, we haven't talked about the Cyclops. It's a rough model. There's Eliza too. I don't know what that model does. Do you guys have anything to say for those two models?
Lysa died when they buffed the Botungan.
Fair.
Yeah, that's it. That's all. Like I have, because like I used to use them until they buffed the Botungan, and then I was like, yeah, it's just not enough anymore. What about you,
What about
James?
Yeah, there are so many good options for schemers now in the keyword. Especially, I mean, when the keyword first came out, Gigants were literally the only scheme runner that you had. But now you have Gigants, you have Coldgeist, you have Crookskin, Spoltungen, you just don't have space for Lissa. And they die to lots of stuff.
I think the Cyclops, if they just suited the Ice Pillar, I think then it's an okay model. It's not great, but at least you can like downtown, 10 or 12 inches in Ice Pillar. And that's probably fine in a lot of situations. But the fact that it's not suited is just bad.
Yeah, they don't.
Wow.
They don't need a stat 5, 2-inch min 3 attack.
Yeah.
You really just don't need that in this keyword at all. And their bonus is only 6 inches, so if you get in to do something relevant, then someone will just come kill you.
Yeah.
So
I tried to
Very
make it
sad.
work, folks. I'm sorry.
It's very sad. Yeah.
the other thing we haven't really mentioned is that this crew, every single model in this crew wants tomes. And
Yeah. Oh, Lord,
you just
you're-
don't have the tomes.
You're not wrong. Like every good trigger in this crew is almost all are tomes for sure.
Yep.
Because that was an argument somebody made to me. They're like, well, you just wait and you old ways for a tome when it comes up. And I was like, okay, well, first off, you don't get to control that, right? Like if your opponent's savvy and they see a good tomes on top of your deck, they're going to interact with you to flip something else. And two, there's times where you can't wait for that. You need the Ice Pillar now to set up your next activation. Yeah. And that's why it's just bad. It's because anything that you don't have control of your action and when that happens in your time, that is something that is going to be a burden to the crew. And that's the most important thing that the Cyclops does is putting down Ice Pillars and then doing its bonus. Because its bonus is sweet. I do like the bonus a lot.
It's a great bonus. But if you drop an Ice Pillar at 12 inches, you can't do the bonus on it.
That's the other thing. It's like, well, balls. Now I can't drop this where I want. I got to move. And are they speed 4? They're not fast. I got to look.
They're 5 move.
Okay.
But
So
4 defense. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, so that's the Cyclops. So I think that Savage is good enough, guys, where you could play Savage into pretty much every pool. Some of them are going to be better or worse, but I haven't found a pool yet that I hate. Like even going into corner deployment, I'm like, yeah, this isn't bad. I can do this all day.
It's the keyword with movement shenanigans and big fatties.
Yeah, I'd say the only board I've seen that I don't like them is where there's a lot of like line of sight blocking terrain. Like if there's a crap ton of buildings that it's like, okay, I can't, like my auras are not going to interlock at all. That's kind of where I would probably lean against, taking Savage, but pretty much everywhere else, I feel pretty good taking them.
Yeah, see, that's the opposite of me. That's when I dropped the first, version.
Yes, that is absolutely when I would too. But I like the second version more, so that's why I'm like, I can't drop the second version. Guess I'm going old number 1. So what do you think their strengths are, though? So what strategies or schemes do you guys see that you're like, they're really good at this?
James, do you have any strategies that you prefer him in? Because I'm kind of with Pete.
In this pool, I would say they're pretty much good at all the strategies. Raid the Vaults, they're exceptionally good at because they have so many ways to move themselves and opponents.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Just Thune alone is
good.
disgusting. He can bury somebody, hook chain somebody else. There's just a lot of times where you're going to swing a couple points either way just from Thune activating him by himself. And you have all of these little crappy guys that can run around and stand by things. So I think he's really good at raid. Cloak is a little tricky because you don't have necessarily activation control, although Murder is always activation control as well.
That is the Neverborn way.
It's true.
Can't control them, murder them.
Yeah, and I think Deathbeds obviously sticks out to me just because put down an Ice Pillar and kill it seems good.
I mean, I like him in CAD, especially because of the Geigen thing that I was talking about, because you can just drop an Ice Pillar,
an Ice Pillar,
and then say no, you cannot interact until you destroy the ice pillar, and that is very helpful. There's also many instances where like the 2-inch reach on Garyon becomes like very important because you have to steal from the Garyon rather than get the thing. So you have to work around that. You have to like, okay, can I get the activation control so that the Garyon doesn't screw me over next turn?
I think Cloak and Dagger I would still be a little hesitant to, just because you don't have as much AP in a lot of situations. So I'd be a little cautious there because you do need a lot of AP for like that and ballots. So you have to be very careful with your like action efficiency there.
Yep.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of fancy interact tricks for those.
Yeah, they have anti-interact tricks, but they don't have like fancy interact tricks.
Yeah, and I think also Outflank, Power Ritual, Espionage, those are ones that I think Savage can do very well now. I think when it comes down to Savage, they can do most of the pools. I really think it comes up to board and matchup. Like there are some times where it's easier to get those schemes, but if your opponent has kind of good answers to things like hard to kill, or if they have ways to just remove models easily or schemes easily, or I think probably the thing that really can get in your way is models that have like blow it to hell, right? Blow it to hell is probably the worst thing you can see playing Savage.
Well, not Savage. I would say original Yuri, because I find that the title does very well against people with blow it all to hell. You just have to play a different game.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're not putting out as many ice pillars, or you're spreading them out more.
Yeah. I mean, I personally love Absolute Zero against crews like Bandits because they like to drop a lot of ski markers, and then you can just remove all those ski markers to heal models.
Yeah, 100%. Which brings up another good point why I like the title, because with so many scheme markers being dropped, you just remove them with a bonus. Just feels great. So I guess the better answer or question might be, what schemes or strats does it struggle into? Because I can think of a couple schemes like In Your Face would probably be rough sometimes because you have some expensive models.
That's like the worst of the schemes, probably, now that I think about it.
Are there any other schemes where you guys are like, that one's kind of rough for Savage?
So I want to, like, to the listeners, the reason why I think it's the worst scheme is because Yuri doesn't like to be within 3 inches of anything that's dangerous. And he's really good at just making sure that your opponent doesn't get to him. So why would you want to have a scheme that you have to be within 3 inches of an 8-point model that's more than likely a beater?
That's true.
Yeah, also Thune does go down in a lot of games. He doesn't have a lot of defenses, and people really hate him. So
there's just the hate factor that people just want to kill him.
I mean, he is a mini game. If you do not kill Thune or deal with Thune, Thune wins you the game. That's a mini game that you have to win. So yeah, opponents are definitely hating on that model hard.
So I would also say information overload is a tough one. There's not a lot of ways to get ski markers down other than just interacting. So especially against,
there's not a lot of like interact, leap, interact in the crew. So
yeah, you have to get very tricky with that scheme, and that's probably the main reason why I mean I have to agree with James like 100%. And like, yeah, you have absolute zero to like deny your opponent's information overload, but then you have to put down yours, and it's that mini game is not in your favor usually.
Yeah, and the crew is definitely going to struggle with anything and that's why I'm trying to think. I don't think I've actually played Savage into ballots, I think, now that I'm looking at it. And to me, I think that's the strategy. I feel like at least they would probably struggle the most. I don't know if you guys have games into ballots with Savage, but have you struggled in those games?
I mean, it's similar to the game plan in CAD, to be honest. Deny your opponent and try to make it harder for them to score the first 2 rounds. Round 2 and 3, that's what I mean.
I don't think I've ever taken Savage into balance, just because I love Swamp Hag and Broodmother so much.
My
They're
God.
just great at it.
I mean, it's not the Swamp Hag. I like OG Sarita because he can arc interact, and I like Titania too for the same reason. And arc interact is so OP in this GG.
Yeah.
So you could try to like slam down Savage, but it sounds like other keywords just do it a lot more efficiently.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they have game into it, but it would be. It's just a keyword that has such a high ceiling that I would never say that they're bad at ballots. There's so many ways to play every single model in the keyword.
Yeah.
But it is a little harder than it is with others.
Okay, so I mean, we've been talking about a lot of strengths of this crew, what they do, some of the fun stuff. Are the weaknesses purely you have to remove ice pillars, or is the weakness also if you can deal with hard to kill, it's pretty easy to fold them up? Like, what do you guys think about as far as how to deal with this crew?
Being able to ignore hard to kill or ping damage is really the big thing that the crew struggles against. If somebody can take your Garyon down to 1 and then life leech or something to prevent them from healing back up, they're just dead.
Yeah. They don't have defenses against ping damage, so you can hard hit a model until they get to hard to kill, and then ping damage them once or twice, and that's it.
Yeah, I could see that.
Also, they don't have like super crazy tech pieces. They have questions that they pose to your opponent, but like if the opponent has a strong question to ask, like say Terra buries you, or Terra answers burying by like removing models that are buried. All of a sudden, it's like, ah, crap. Well, I can't use Thune, and I can't use. Your gimmicks are kind of shortened.
So sometimes, like those harder questions that your opponents can pose to you, you really struggle to answer. But if they can't answer your question, sometimes that kind of gets you over, it sounds like a little bit.
Yeah. You put a lot of mini games as well. It's just that your mini games are not like end all be all. It's not. Can you handle being buried over and over again? That kind of question is a lot stronger than can you handle one model being buried and this other model over here not being able to go through this section of the map for like 2 turns.
Yeah, and I don't think the willpower on a lot of your models is very high.
I mean, stats in general are 5 in Savage. The only exception are Yuri and Thune.
I think Thune's actually willpower 5. Yeah, he's willpower 5 too.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like stats in general. Stats in general, Thune is a 6 on willpower. The OG Thune is. Title is 6 on both. But aside from and I'm sorry, Thune is 6 on defense. Euripides is 6 on willpower on the OG version and 6/6 on defense willpower on the title. But the rest of the keyword is 5. That's it. That's what it caps.
Yeah, except for Crookskins and Poltungan are 4s, but everything else, yeah, you're right, it's a 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think Poltungan is still a 5, but against guns, it's a 6. So that's like a slight, bonus there. And then Crookskins are they're mimic, so they get to cheat a little.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, I mean, we kind of dug into most of the keyword. I don't know if you guys have any like kind of closing thoughts on it or just anything else you want to share. I don't know, tech, add a keyword, anything.
Not really. I think that just the runes are just really, really good. If your opponent can't draw cards, they're going to have to cheat every duel they want to win because they're just not going to top deck against you.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know also, I think the timing of it is you decide to use the rune token before the duel flips. So that takes precedence. So it's not like your opponent can get around that and be like, oh, I'm going to flip before that happens. It's like, no, I get to look at your cards, and if I don't like those 2 cards, I can pitch both of them.
Yeah, the title.
And then you can old ways still as well.
There you go. There you go. That's the big one. Like,
well, and
the title makes it so that your card quality is significantly better than like probably 90% of your enemy's crews, but you still have to deal with all the dirty stuff.
Yeah, and I was going to say it is non-Joker, but the fact that you know the Joker's there is also pretty powerful. There's been times where I've done it. I see that there's a red Joker there. Okay, I'm going to proc Avalanche to make you take a simple duel, and you pass it with your red Joker. Well, I know, James, you have at least one plug, but you want to kind of share what y'all are all about up there in the Michigander?
Yeah, I do the Breachprint podcast. We have a lot of wacky ideas, a lot of innovators up here. Scott has been pretty devastating in a couple of tournaments recently, so we're trying to get Everborn up in the stats. I also do a blog called Neverborn Till I Die that I've recently done a little bit on how to spread the community and try to grow stuff in your area, so definitely give that a check out.
I think you've done a successful job because Neverborn is the most played faction in the game.
Yeah, they're just cool, man. Just
the
cool
athletics.
faction.
Yeah, we ask hard questions. That's what I like to say.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is a good gaining grounds for Neverborn too, just because of the mobility, and they can kind of pick off some of these scheme runners running around and just ask some of those tough questions for sure.
I mean, other people are doing very hard questions, so I don't want to like say, oh, best faction in the game for no reason whatsoever, but I do love the questions that Neverborn ask.
But I think with that being said, we're going to get on with our 4th of July. I'm going to cook some steaks, boys. So until next time, make sure that you guys are flipping cards and flipping tables, and we will see you all later.